Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Today we're going to be taking a look at Oath, Chronicles of Empire and Exile by Cole Worley, art by Kyle Farron, and published by Letter Games. So first off, we're going to go ahead and start with an overview of the game, and this is going to be probably the most brief overview I've ever done because this game is full of tiny little intricacies. Now, the whole point of this game is you have a Chancellor. The Chancellor here has his own special board, and his whole thing is he's trying to keep an oath. And the oath is different each game, but let's just say it's this one, hold relics and banners. So as long as he's doing that, the most, he gets the Oath Keeper, which is going to basically say, hey, I'm ruling the land. At the end of the game, after a couple of rounds, we'll roll the die to see if he has actually maintained the oath. If you reach this number or higher, he wins. You also have Exiles. Exiles are all the guys that are not the Oath Keeper. Their whole job is to take the oath from that person by doing the oath better, and then eventually become the usurper. When they become the usurper, they win the game. The Exiles can also, by looking through this deck of denizens, find visions, which are new alternate win conditions. For example, this one says, hey, if you have the most of this thing, you win. So if that is true at the start of their turn and enough visions have been revealed, the Exile wins instead. So that's the whole win condition of the game. The Chancellor, if he's down on his luck, he can also turn Exiles into citizens, which is kind of cool. And then you even get a new win condition, which means that now you have to do the successor condition. So lots of different ways to win, but the main driving factor of this game is it's an action point system game. So on your turn, you're going to have a number of supply, and you're going to be using these supply to do actions. These are things like drawing cards from the citizen deck, getting new warbands to put onto places and control them, or you can even fight. When you fight, you can have lots of dice, and when you fight, you actually are going on a campaign as opposed to just a battle, which means you can basically attack anything. So you can attack the person themselves. You can attack any items that they're holding. You can attack their land that they currently rule. You have lots of different choices with how you fight, how you trade, and how you travel. As you can see, this board has some face-down pieces because there are some locations that you're not sure what they are. So when you reveal them, you'll have new abilities, new places, and new effects that will kind of change the game up. So it's kind of cool to get there first, so potentially you can, gain benefits from them. So the best part about this game, though, and we're going to go ahead and go to the things I like, has to be the cards. So my favorite part of this game is the card system. So these are what are called Denizen cards. On your turn, for an action, you can actually find these denizens, and you'll draw them 3 at a time, and sometimes you'll hit one of those vision cards. So every time you hit a vision, you'll move this tracker up, and the more that get revealed, the harder it is to look through this deck, but that's okay. You can also look through the discard piles for a discounted rate, but you're going to get all the seconds that everybody didn't want. So you'll pick one of the 3 cards you find, and the cards have different symbols that they're attached to. And these cards relate to one of these favor banks down here. This is the group of people this is. This is a Discord person. So if you decide to use him, so he costs money to use, then the money you spend is actually going to go into that bank. So it has this cool closed economy. So the cards are actually going to either go in your hand as what are called advisors, and there are special abilities that only you can use. Very powerful. You can also use them on the board, so you can place them down here, and if you rule that area, or if your piece is there, you can use their effects and trade with them and whatnot. So pretty awesome. You have lots of multi-use with these cards, but really, at its heart, you are making tableaus, whether it be tableaus on the board that are shared, or your own personal tableau in your advisor section. And I think that is so cool. My other favorite part about this is all of the denizens here are so different. And as you play the game, you are going to be adding and removing denizens. So at the end of each game, you are going to actually, based on who won, the advisors that they had, so say the person who won the game had a bunch of these arcanes, you're actually going to, in this world box here, you're going to put out more arcane cards. And as you can see, the arcane people have been winning a lot recently. So you're going to put in a bunch of those new cards and actually remove some of the old cards. So all these cards up here are cards that were removed from the games that we've played of this. So it's kind of crazy. This game is a living, breathing game. And that's another thing that I really enjoy, is the Chronicle. So at the end of every game, whoever wins gets to not only affect the deck, but they also get to write in the Chronicle book. And this Chronicle book is hilarious. And if you open it up here, these are some of the entries that we've written. So based on whoever wins, they get to decide how they want to write it. It could be a long paragraph. It could be a picture of some sort. It's pretty fantastic. So we had one person win twice in a row, and they decided to draw one of the characters. Kind of looks like a banana. So that's what they kind of went for their whole motif. Pretty hilarious. But There's a lot of creativity and flexibility and freedom with how you create the game. So that's another thing I really enjoy is the chronicle and the carryover from each game. So not only do you get to write the history, but you also get to determine the cards and the land that exist in the next game. So for example, if this Chancellor won, all of the land that he controls here is going to actually carry over to the next game. In addition, if the Chancellor wins, they're allowed to construct these edifices. So these edifices, they will be built permanently onto the board, and they give really cool abilities. And each faction has one of these, so you'll actually change one of the cards into an edifice of its type, and it becomes a new ability that's permanently there. And eventually, if the Chancellor does lose, the winner will be able to burn one of those edifices. So instead of this Great Spire, it's now Fallen Spire. So that's really neat. I love that concept. So that's one thing I really enjoy is the whole idea of the chronicle and the living game. I also really enjoy the closed economy system. So there's an action that you can take on your turn called trade. When you do so, the first thing you do is you put a secret on something. And when you trade with a person, you're going to get coins from that group. So for example, over here, the Hearth people, you would take 1 coin from them. Or based on how many matching suits you have, you can get some more. However, if that's empty, you no longer can get favor from them because they're poor. They don't have any more resources to give. They've given all their favor, so they don't have enough for you. And I think that's really cool. So you have lots of flexibility here with, you know, how you're going to manipulate that, the markets, how you're moving the money around. I think that's really neat. Same thing with these secrets. This is a cool resource where you can use it to take those trade actions or pay for other certain things. Very, very cool. So love the cards. I love the closed economy on these, and I love the overall legacy type of game this is. So coming from the win conditions that are going to change to the setups, I think it's super well done. I would be remiss to say that I really enjoy the artwork here. So this is probably my favorite artwork in a board game. I think it's absolutely incredible. I think that this is a fantastic world that they've built here. Every single card here is unique and different, and every single card is out of this world with the artwork and the passion and the creativity that went into it. This unique fantasy world is something to behold. It's incredible. I love it. It's very light fantasy, but also very cool and very interesting. So I love the different things that they went with for this game as a whole. So artwork, the cards, everything here. And the other thing I really enjoy is actually the battle system. So battle is really interesting. When you go on a fight, you're going to have a certain number of soldiers. And the soldiers here are going to give you attack dice. And the attack dice are very straightforward. You have these half swords, which they aren't anything unless you have 2 of them. You have 1 sword, just an attack. And then these kill one of your guys, but get you 2 swords. So while that is for the attack dice, you also have defense dice. And the defense are interesting because they have some blanks, 2s, 1s, and then a ×2. So if you roll a bunch of ×2s and nothing else, it's pretty crappy, but the more of the defense dice you get, the more threatening they become. So once again, you could just get a big whiff, so something like that. 3, if you're rolling 4, is not so good, but if you get something as simple as this, or even something like that, 8 defense is kind of insane. So I really enjoy how the battle escalates. And in addition to just the dice themselves, I love that when you attack somebody, you can attack whatever you want. So for example, say that this white guy was here and he wanted to attack purple. He's got to attack the site that he's at. So he's got to hit this guy. But he can also attack the guy all the way over here as long as he has some, some into that. You can also attack the items that the characters are holding, and they get defense dice based on what you attack. Or you can attack the character themselves, and you can banish them and get rid of some of their coins. And that can come up based on the win condition that you're going for. If you have a win condition that relies on you needing a lot of money, it might be good to just banish people. Banishing can also be pretty cruel because you can actually send these characters all the way to like distant lands, and it'll be harder for them to get back and potentially waste a lot of their valuable action points. The other thing I really like is those action points. So first thing, your action points are really interesting because the more dudes, the more warriors, warbands that you have on the board and on your personal board, the less action points you get. So if you are totally dominating, you're going to get less actions, which I think is a really cool balancing mechanic. So the other important thing is these actions save from turn to turn. If I end my turn and I have 3 left over, I get those 3 no matter what. So say I didn't need to do anything on my turn, I could just go back to full, and then my next turn, I would have all these actions if I need them, which is super cool. I love that idea, and it really helps with the downtime of the game, because you don't have to penny pinch. You don't have to use every single action point, because you can always save them. So you do what you can, do the things that you think are best, and then you're not punished for not taking forever and perfectly planning it out. So I really enjoy that. So that being said, those are all of the really big positives of the game. But the biggest positive, I think, has to do with also a perceived negative. So in Oath, this game is one of sound. It almost sounds like it's a king-making game. So, and that's exactly what it is. So Oath is a king-making game. You have a character that plays as the Oathkeeper. And it's kind of up to everybody to stop this person. This, sounds something like Munchkin. I had somebody describe it to me as, this seems like Munchkin, but with extra steps, a nice coat of art, and a huge board. And I agree with that to some point, but I think that this game is so fascinating because it presents this king-making dilemma, but gives you so many options to circumvent and strategize around it. So yes, there will be a character that has this tile, and your job is to get rid of it from that character. However, you are also trying to connive as much as you can so that you are going to win on your turn, and no one can prevent you from that. So for example, say the Chancellor has this here. It is round 5. You know that somebody needs to take this usurper or he has a chance to win from him. So you can either do it yourself, or you can connive it in a way that maybe you force it on somebody else. That maybe you do it, but in doing it, you increase your own, your own lead. You could join the Chancellor's team, become their ally, and win using that usurper condition. You can set up a situation where people are focused on taking over one threat while you secretly win with that vision that nobody saw coming. People will know what you are planning. People will know that there are options and schemes that are available to you. But how you determine those actions is completely up to you, and that is the beauty and the freedom of this game. How are you going to use the cards to help with this? Because a lot of these cards seem kind of weird or funky, but in tandem with the relics, these superpowers, in tandem with the denizens and the abilities there, you are not exactly sure what your opponents are thinking of, and a lot of the information can be kept secret. So you have a lot of choice and, power to this. So that is one of my favorite things, and some things that people don't like this. And I think that's going to be a huge selling point or a huge detractor for people that are playing this game. Do you like the idea of that constant, king of the hill, shifting Oathkeeper? And do you like being able to cleverly circumvent that? So if you like something that's a bit more straightforward, then I wouldn't recommend this game to you. I think that you would probably benefit from a game like Root, where it's easy to clear. It's clearly easy to see who's winning. It's easy to focus on your own personal engine and generate points. In this game, you are after the win. You are after a way to make sure somebody else isn't winning, but it's all up to how clever you are and how you're able to use this system in front of you. And I think that is so cool that this game has allowed a space like that. Now, some other negatives that I think involve in the game is sometimes that king-making thing does come up, and it can make somebody feel really bad when everybody at the table is kind of scheming to overthrow you. I had a game where my wife has this amazing amount of army. She has about 12 people on her board on defense. She has so many defense dice on her different things and her different battle plans. But as a group, everybody kind of thought, okay, how can we stop it? How can we do this? So really cool table talk, but I can only imagine the way she felt when we kind of pieced it all out, we pictured everything, and we kind of figured out that, hey, if you become a citizen, this is going to give you extra troops. I can move over here and drop all the troops off here, and then you can pick them up on your turn and go and stop her. Oh man, I can only imagine how furious she felt when the win was taken from her by the collaboration and cooperation of everybody else at the table. And it ended up with that, the Chancellor winning, because, there was a whole bunch of citizens and they didn't really have time to break that citizenship. So that can be really frustrating, and I totally acknowledge that. The other thing that can be frustrating are the cards themselves. So we're actually going to talk about this card here. Some of these cards are straight up mean, and you might not see them. And once again, they're one-ofs. And these are populated randomly on what comes in the deck. So this card is pretty straightforward. You pay a coin, you take a secret from a player who's at your site. So secrets are one of the harder resources to get. It usually costs a lot of money to get them. So if you are losing a secret by just somebody having to have a card, it can feel a little bad when you spend your turn getting one and it almost feels like, your turn was wasted. And I can see that, but the fact that there are so many cards that do that, I don't think it's a huge issue, but I can definitely see it being super annoying. But you have to keep in mind, if somebody is taking this card that is allowing them to take secrets, they are losing the ability to do some other crazy things, like getting extra attack dice or, you know, getting these amazing one-time benefits when you play it. So I think that there are huge trade-offs to using cards like this. And once again, most of these cards are one-time use per turn, so they're not always going to be present. But the thing I do like about this is it does change the dynamic of the game, because, hey, this card exists now, so maybe we don't get a bunch of secrets, but it can feel bad if you're the first person to kind of get taken out that way. The other thing that could be a detractor in this game is the art style itself, actually. It could actually be something that you don't enjoy, and I can totally get that. I think this artwork is very unique, and I think it definitely has its pros and cons. So that's one thing. The other thing you might not like about this game are all the tiny rules. So once again, the game is very simple. On your turn, you do some actions, you get 6 to choose from, but there are lots of kind of key details. What happens if you're a citizen? What happens if the Oathkeeper changes and 2 people are tied? What happens with these specific interactions for these cards? Those could come up, and luckily the game does come with a nice rulebook here. It's called the Law of Oath, and that usually will help with most of those issues. And the game actually does come with a great how to play guide. So it has a read me first guide here that's going to kind of take you through the game. It has a demo setup, and it kind of teaches you how to teach Oath, how to learn it. It's got a lot of thought put into the rulebook on how to play. So when I set up this first game, I actually followed this to the T. I opened up the packets. It comes with these additional cards. I kind of have them set aside here in case I do want to have this set up, go back, like reset the game. You can use them. But these cards are kind of in packets, and they kind of lay out that first game for you. And I think that's really cool. But that is kind of an overview of the game, the things that I really like, the things I dislike, the things I can see other people not liking. But overall, I think that this game is pretty dang incredible. It's one of my favorites from this year, for sure. It's definitely up there. This is definitely a side game success, in my opinion. I love the art. I love the feeling I get when I play this game. I love the idea of being crafty and clever. I love searching through the deck of cards, looking for citizens that I can use that no one else may see coming. I love diving through the discard piles to find citizens that I can populate the board with and find matching symbols. I love the exploration of the different locations. I love the weird relics that exist in the game. I love how funky these banners work and how much they change the game by being so small and so, I didn't even talk about these. I love how integral these components are without being overbearing. I think it's super awesome. So I love the generational aspect of the game. I love that every play that you've had is recorded for anybody to read and for you to go back and enjoy. This game is a blast. Now, the other thing, though, before I do close, there's one thing that I do want to bash on, and that's going to be the Clockwork Prince. So they do have a solo mode for the game. It requires you to use this little Clockwork Prince module. You flip the board on the back. I don't recommend this at all. It's honestly pretty boring. The cool part of this game is being clever and crafty. In this one, it's not necessarily being clever. It's about being lucky, and it's also about being able to kind of anticipate what the character is going to do. It's going to determine how much of a threat you are and what it needs to do based on this track. And sometimes it's just not going to be able to do the actions to stop you. So instead of becoming a game about like intrigue and, being clever and actually making important and key decisions and agreements, it becomes a game of let's solve this puzzle. And the puzzle's not very interesting. It's more of like, hey, if I get this item, I know he's going to do this. And he's not going to be able to do this, so I guess I'll just set up my whole game to do that. And it's not fun or exciting. And the way that the character takes actions is based on card draw, and that can be extremely random. It's just not that fun. So I wouldn't recommend this one at all for solo, but for multiplayers, I would recommend this in a heartbeat. Once again, it is going to be hit or miss with who you actually play it with, but those are my thoughts on Oath. What do you think of the game as a whole? I know this review is a little bit like kind of everywhere, but I do think this game is worth giving a try. And if you have any questions or comments, or if you'd like to hear anything else about the game, I'd love to help you out with that. Are there any games that you'd like to see reviewed in the future? Please let me know. Once again, this is kind of a crazy out there review. This is a hard one to kind of peg down, but I really enjoy this game. This is one that I'm never going to turn down, and one that I'm going to ask to play because I do love it that much. But that's my review of Oath. Thank you so much for watching. Side Game Strong.